The Council of Eternum convened in the opalescent Hall of Echoes, its soaring columns carved from the living crystal of Zephyria Prime. Sunlight fractured through the Colorex panes, scattering prismatic patterns across the marble floor. 5 delegates, each representing one of the ancient races that had held sway over the galaxy for millennia, took their seats beneath the soaring dome. Their crests glowed faintly. The rippling waves of the Assyri, the bioluminescent filaments of the Lyci, the stony facets of the Dralin, the turbulent auroras of the Eridanians, and the spiraling glyphs of the Androms. At the center sat Grand Archivist Vashorn, whose elongated tendrils shimmered with the knowledge of 1,000 histories. He tapped the crystalline lectern, and the vast amphitheater fell into a hush so complete it seemed to absorb sound itself. Holographic projections activated around him, displaying star charts and treaty stipulations in elegant gold filigree. "Today," Vashorn intoned, "we stand on the cusp of a new era. For the first time in 80 cycles of Lyci reckoning, a species once considered wayward, the humans of Terra, extends its hand in genuine friendship. Let us receive their treaty of 10,000 suns with the honor it deserves." A ripple of assent washed through the chamber. Yet behind those ritual gestures, subtle glimmers of doubt flickered in many eyes. The Dralin High Counselor, Oriand, his skin mottled with restless patterns, narrowed his gaze. "Tell me, Archivist," he said, voice low and gravelly. "What proof do we have that these humans will uphold their pledge? Their history is written in defiance." Before Vashorn could reply, the chamber's wide doors whispered open. 2 human envoys entered. Ambassador Lyra Sato, clad in a tailored uniform of polished alloy, and her aide, Envoy Tarek Makani, whose dark eyes shone with determined fervor. Lyra moved with measured grace, every step imbued with the confidence of a people who had survived famine, plague, and civil war, yet never lost their capacity for renewal. Lyra paused at the threshold, lifting her gaze to the assembly. "Esteemed members of the Council," she began, her voice firm but warm, "we stand before you not as supplicants, but as equals. The Treaty of 10,000 Suns is more than ink on a scroll. It is our collective promise to uphold peace, to share our knowledge, and to safeguard the rights of every sentient being in this galaxy." A murmur of approval drifted through the hall. The Androm representative, their skins swirling with iridescent glyphs, inclined their head in greeting. Even Orion's mottled pattern softened, though suspicion lingered. Vashorn gestured, and a crystalline tablet descended into Lyra's hands. She unrolled it, revealing lines of script in multiple languages, species common, Eridanian runes, Assyri wave glyphs, and the human characters of old Terra. With a steady voice, she read the opening lines. "We, the peoples of Sol System, in humility and hope, pledge our sovereignty to the greater good. May our curiosity never outpace our compassion, and may our actions be guided by the light of reason." As she spoke, the tablet's runes pulsed softly, translating her words into each counselor's native tongue. When she finished, Lyra offered a stylus made of tempered andesite. One by one, the delegates affixed their seals, liquid crystal, forged metals, living bio-glue, onto the treaty's surface. When the final imprint settled, Vashorn raised his staff. "Let our unity be our greatest achievement. May the treaty of 10,000 suns shine brighter than any star." Outside, across 5 clusters of worlds, fireworks ignited in a symphony of color. Zephyrian spires glowed emerald, Assyri oceans shimmered with phosphorescent blooms, Lysian jungles pulsed with bioluminescent life, and Dralin mountain forges sang with molten resonance. On Terra, crowds filled the plazas of New York, of New Beijing, of New Lagos, remembering the scars of their past, yet daring to hope for a harmonious future. Yet beneath the pageantry, the embers of distrust smoldered. In hidden sanctuaries, on Lunar Station, the memory keepers convened beneath vaulted tunnels of basalt and regolith glass. Their leader, Marisol Hahn, laid out a holomap of former human worlds laid to waste in the Council's peacekeeping campaigns. 10 systems destroyed, she whispered, voice echoing in the vaulted chamber. Millions displaced. They call it pacification. We call it genocide. Around her, acolytes, clad in dark cloaks embroidered with the blood-red sun symbol, nodded grimly. Tarek Makani, once Lyra's aide, now wore the Memory Keeper insignia on his uniform, his eyes, haunted by childhood memories of evacuating his home on New Carthage, burned with purpose. Marisol activated a sequence of dossiers. We will not wait for the Council's mercy. Our people deserve the right to decide their destiny without external arbiters. We shall remind the galaxy that humanity does not kneel. Back on Lunar Station's surface, Lyra Sato watched the Celestia beacon, an orb of supercooled plasma that linked human worlds in instantaneous communication. Despite the jubilation, her console pinged with urgent alerts. Fragments of intercepted messages, clandestine troop movements, anomalies at Cascade Station. A tight knot formed in her chest. She tapped her console. "Report!" she ordered. A holographic display showed encrypted chatter among human commanders. The message, Operation Jundring will commence at Orion's Edge. All loyalist elements are to align. Lyra's voice trembled, though she forced it steady. Cancel all preparations. Recall every fleet. We cannot start a war on the heels of peace. The console chirped. Ambassador, the memory keepers have seized command frequencies. They're locking down orbital facilities. They won't comply. Lyra closed her eyes. Then we must find another way. Human blood on our hands so soon. I will not allow it. That night, as the twin moons of Luna cast long silver shadows across the station's domed corridors, Lyra slipped into the archives. Ancient records detailed the frustration of previous species who had yearned for greater freedom but had ultimately found unity stronger than rebellion. She studied the Eridanian concepts of shared memory and the Assyri belief in the eternal flow, ideas that had enabled peace to endure for eons. A soft chime signaled a message from Grand Archivist Vashon himself. Lyra watched, his hollow form materialize amidst the stacks of data. Ambassador, his voice resonated with calm authority. Humanity's path will not be determined by zealots. We stand ready to assist in quelling any unrest, to offer mediation, to share the burden of rebuilding trust. Lyra hesitated. To accept the Council's aid would brand her as a traitor to the Memory Keepers, yet to reject it risked igniting the very war she feared. I accept, she whispered, on one condition, that humanity retains its voice in any settlement. No dictations, no puppet governments. Vashon's eyes glimmered with ancient wisdom. Agreed. Dawn broke over Lunar Station as fleets of peacekeeper vessels materialized through the quantum gates. Their neutronic armor gleamed like fallen stars. Their banners fluttered in the vacuum light. In the station's plazas, humans gazed upward in wonder and dread. In the Council's Hall of Echoes, Vashon issued his decree. We will aid the ambassador in preserving peace, but let no one mistake leniency for weakness. And so, on that fateful dawn, as embered banners of humanity and the Council fluttered side by side, a fragile alliance was reborn, one tempered in ceremony, shadowed by covert vows, and carried on the uncertain hope that vengeance could be quelled by understanding. In those glittering corridors of Lunar Station, the seeds of the galaxy's greatest trial were quietly sown. Admiral Celine Peregrine gazed out from the intrepid Dawn's command bridge as Cascade Station's glittering array of orbital platforms drifted into view. The station, once a symbol of human council cooperation, now bristled with peacekeeper armaments, neutronium turrets, graviton nets, and patrol drones that circled like metallic sharks. In the viewport's reflection, Peregrine saw her officers' faces taut with tension, their uniforms crisp and unyielding. "Status report," she ordered. Commander Joris Vale turned from the tactical console. "Peacekeeper forces have doubled. In the last 3 rotations, they recently deployed 2 frigate squadrons and an experimental phase disruptor cannon. Our intelligence suggests they intend to neutralize every unshielded human vessel that approaches." Peregrine clenched her jaw. "They've overstepped. We built this station side by side. Now they treat it like a prison." Her voice held. Ice and fire in equal measure. A gentle chime announced the arrival of encrypted comm traffic. Peregrine tapped her console. The holoscreen flickered to reveal Marisol Hahn, leader of the Memory Keepers, her eyes glowing with fanatic resolve. "Admiral," Hahn's voice crackled, "we've secured the southern quadrant. Peacekeeper command posts are compromised. Their defense grid is inoperative. Cascade is ours for the taking." Peregrine's heart pounded. She remembered the idealist who had once stood beside her at treaty signings, now hardened into a revolutionary. "Marisol, listen carefully. This station belongs to all humans, not to your order alone. I'm ordering you to stand down. We'll negotiate a status quo today. No more blood." Hahn's jaw tightened. "Negotiation is capitulation. We've bled too long under their so-called peace. At dawn, the triad cannons fire on the central spire. That's the signal." Her hollow image blinked out. Peregrine leaned back, the bridge's artificial gravity suddenly oppressing. She punched her comm badge. "All hands, battle stations. Nobody fires until I give the order." In Cascade Station sublevels, corridors of steel and glass hid the silent advance of Memory Keeper operatives. Behind them, flickering emergency lights revealed the grim aftermath of their sabotage. Fractured power conduits, sparking relay banks, and collapsed maintenance tunnels that crushed stray security droids. Envoy Tarek Makani, once a peace envoy and now a lieutenant in Hahn's vanguard, moved with grim satisfaction. "We've done enough for a declaration," he whispered to his partner, Jael Bren, as they laid timed charges beneath the station's central nexus. "By tomorrow, they'll dismantle the gates they arrogantly built to control us." Jael hesitated. "Is destruction the only answer? The Council will retaliate across human worlds." Her voice trembled. "We'll be no better than them." Makani's eyes flashed. "They call it peace, we call it chains." Back on the intrepid Dawn, Peregrine convened her senior staff in the strategy deck, a circular room whose hollow map of Cascade glowed beneath a transparent floor. Across the table, Captain Ishan Talis, her second-in-command, frowned. "Admiral, if we intervene too late, we'll lose Cascade forever. But if we strike now, we violate every treaty we've sworn to uphold." Peregrine tapped the holomaps. "Center. Our mission is to preserve human sovereignty without igniting an interstellar war. We deploy a surgical team to neutralize the disruptor cannon. Simultaneously, we broadcast a ceasefire order directly to every human channel, making clear that this attack is unauthorized by any legitimate government." Helmsman Rhea Cheslock spoke up, voice tight. "We risk mutiny. The squadron captains demand they join the offensive. Defensive liberation, they called it. Then we'll remind them why we serve," Peregrine said, eyes steely. "Bloodshed without purpose is surrendering to vengeance." As the station's polar dawn approached, the intrepid Dawn's stealth shuttles slipped through sensor blind spots and descended toward the phase disruptor array. Peregrine led the strike team personally, boots echoing in the cannon's cavernous chamber. Behind a scaffold of supercooled plasma conduits, they found the Memory Keeper agents hunched over the weapons control core. "Hands in the air," Peregrine barked. The operatives froze. Marisol Hahn emerged from the shadows, pistol in hand. "You're too late, Admiral." Peregrine leveled her own sidearm. "Marisol, you've gone beyond redeemable. Stand down, or I will." Hahn's finger hovered over the trigger. For a heartbeat, two warriors faced off in the half-light of the giant weapon. Then, an audible click as Bren, torn by doubt, hit Hahn's wrist with a sidekick. The pistol skittered across the floor. Hahn sank to her knees. "Then kill me." Peregrine holstered her weapon. "No, we bring you home, women, and men of humanity deserve justice, court, not execution." Moments later, the ceasefire broadcast swept through every human channel, overriding the Memory Keeper's signal with Peregrine's calm voice. "This attack is unsanctioned and will be treated as treason. Cascade Station remains under the protection of the United Earth Fleet. Lay down your arms. Help restore order. Violence will only invite the Council's intervention." Across the station, confused operatives froze. The phase disruptor ceased humming. Outside, the dreadnoughts of the United Earth Fleet pivoted away from the Council blockade. In the orbital ring's skyports, refugees, technicians, and families stepped from escape pods, blinking into the light of a dawn neither wholly human nor fully peaceful. That night, in a makeshift tribunal aboard the intrepid Dawn, Marisol Hahn and her lieutenants faced charges of insurrection. Peregrine watched impassively as evidence streamed across holoscreens, records of sabotage, plans for orbital bombardment, intercepted manifestos preaching vengeance. When the proceedings ended, Peregrine addressed the assembled crowd of human, officers and civilians alike. "We have all tasted the bitterness of betrayal. Let this tribunal stand as proof that we answer to principles higher than revenge. The galaxy watches, and so should our consciences." As the session adjourned, Peregrine lingered beside the viewport. Cascade Station's lights glowed softly below, scars fresh but not irreparable. In her heart, the ember of retribution still burned, but now it was tempered by the knowledge that a single act of mercy could extinguish an entire war's fire. And so, under the pale glow of distant suns, the human saga of vengeance edged reluctantly back toward the fragile path of peace. The void between human-held space and the Council's heart worlds erupted in crimson flame. Fleets clashed at every gate, turning serene hyperspace lanes into rivers of wreckage. The intrepid Dawn led a wedge through the outer defenses of the Novara expanse, her neutronium hull ablaze with strafing fire. Behind her, escort frigates laid down suppressive barrages. Ahead, squadrons of interceptors darted like hornets, harrying peacekeeper cruisers. On the Eternalis, Grand Archivist Vashorn stood upon the battle bridge, eyes fixed on the holomap that flickered with red icons. Each marker denoted a world under siege. Though his tendrils quivered with stress, his voice remained calm as he addressed the assembled councillors. Frontier systems scorch under human bombardment. They sever hypergates indiscriminately and deploy shock squads on planetary surfaces. Their policy, total disabling of our war-making capacity. High Councillor Orion's mottled hide rippled dark as he spoke. They brazenly flout the accord we forged only weeks ago. If we do not respond in kind, they will steamroll the 500 worlds. The Eridanian delegate, Lyran, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing erratically, interjected, "Reprisal would only validate their grievance. We must find a path to de-escalation, if only to salvage our unity before it fractures forever." But among the Council's ranks, consensus crumbled. The Asiri clamored for force. The Draelin desired preemptive strikes. Only the Androms, inscrutable, as always, counseled patience. Deep inside the Novara system, Captain Ishan Talis of the intrepid Dawn orchestrated her wing's advance. Sensors hummed with warning. A Council frigate overshield, twice the power of a standard human design, loomed ahead. Tallis gripped the tactical helm. Admiral Peregrine has forbidden a full engagement, she murmured into her throat mic. But if we don't break that shield generator, our flanks will be torn apart. Her wingmates, battered but resolute, mirrored her hesitation. On the holographic comm feed, Peregrine's stern visage appeared. Focus on disabling their relay repeater. Not annihilation, she ordered. We need leverage for negotiation, not total war. Tallis swallowed. Understood. She guided her corvette in a tight spiral, launching a flurry of plasma torpedoes that ricocheted off the frigate's shields. At the last second, she vectored, a shot beneath the stern pylons, where a stray piece of debris had created a momentary blind spot. The frigate's shields collapsed with a thunderous crack, and human beams punched through, startling the cruiser into retreat. On the bridge, cheers rang out, muted by the knowledge that every victory also meant more worlds aflame. On Scaros, a once idyllic agricultural planet now scarred by orbital bombardment, Drylin refugees huddled in makeshift shelters. Sweat dripped from the brow of Merrick, a farmer who had watched his orchards burn. He stared at the sky as a squadron of human gunships swept past, roaring like angry beasts. They promised to protect us from the Council, he muttered to his daughter Lyndon, whose wide eyes reflected both fear and fascination. Now, they punish us for believing them. Lyndon touched her father's arm. Papa, the Council's peacekeepers destroyed our villages when we rebelled a century ago. Humans, they fight for what they believe in. Merrick's shoulders slumped. Belief alone does not justify this carnage. Across the settlement, Androm medics tended to both human and Dralin wounded, an unspoken reminder that compassion could bridge even the deepest divides. Back aboard the Eternalis, Vashorn convened a clandestine communication with Ambassador Lyra Sato, who had slipped through the front lines aboard a cloaked envoy vessel. Ambassador, Vashorn began as Lyra's hologram shimmered into view, the Council teeters on the brink of all-out retaliation. We must propose a ceasefire before the next supernova cycle, or countless systems will perish. Lyra's eyes bore the fatigue of sleepless nights. I have contacts still loyal to me within the United Earth Fleet. If I can reach Admiral Peregrine directly, perhaps we can broker a halt on both sides. Vashorn inclined his head. Then I shall delay the next salvo, but move swiftly. The Dralin High Command prepares a targeted strike on Luna Station. If that succeeds, the human heartlands will erupt in fury. In the silent corridors of Luna Station, alerts flashed across every console. Council shock teams, Dralin shock troopers, and Eridanian tide sorcerers readied their weapons for a planetary insertion. Ambassador Sato raced through the passageways, clutching a quantum comm implant. She flung open the door to the central command hub. Admiral Peregrine, this is Lyra Sato. Do you copy? Static crackled. Then Peregrine's steely voice, Ambassador, I've been looking for you. Situation? The Council's fleets are preparing simultaneous drops on every human world, Sato reported. If Luna falls, they'll press onward to Terra. We have one chance to stop this. Agree to a galaxy-wide ceasefire. No conditions. Let them withdraw and open talks. Peregrine drew a slow breath. Behind her, the glow of Cascade Station's plasma fields filled the viewport. Dispatch the order. I'll hold the line here, but if the Council refuses, I won't be able to restrain my captains. Sato exhaled. Understood. Transmitting now. She keyed the command. Across human space, broadcasts echoed with Peregrine's words. By my authority as Admiral of the United Earth Fleet, I order all human combatants to cease hostilities, redeploy to defensive postures, and await diplomatic summons. Further aggression will be prosecuted as treason. Moments later, the Eternalis's weapons banks powered down. Dralin shock troopers slung their particle rifles. Eridanian tide sorcerers lowered their wrist casters, and within the vacuum the two armadas drifted, fleet against fleet, blade unsheathed yet uncontrolled. In the void's hush, Vashorn addressed the council by hollow link. The humans have done what few have managed in history. They restrained their vengeance when offered mercy. Shall we match their gesture? High Counselor Orion's mottled hide lightened. He exchanged glances with his peers. Finally, he said, "Begin withdrawal. I will convene a summit on Novara Prime. May we repair what we have broken." As both fleets disengaged, the Pyrrhic cost of war registered across the galaxy. Burnt worlds whispered with the ghosts of the fallen. Families once torn apart, now tentatively reunited on warships, turned humanitarian vessels. And above it all, glittered the shattered remains of peace treaties, fragments waiting to be reforged. Captain Talis watched the last peacekeeper cruiser vanish into hyperspace. Behind her, the intrepid Dawn's engines settled to a rumble. She exhaled. Voice raw. "We did it, but at what price?" Admiral Peregrine stood beside her, gaze fixed on distant stars. "Not the price of our future, that burden we still carry, for vengeance may have sparked this war, but mercy will end it." And so, in the charred expanse between stars, both humans and the ancient council paused, caught between the fading echoes of battle and the fragile promise of a new dawn. The war had raged across the stars, but the greater battle, one of hearts and minds, had only just begun. A shroud of emerald gas drifted through the Cat's Eye Nebula as fleets from both sides emerged into view. The intrepid Dawn and the Council flagship Eternalis drifted within mutual weapons range, their hulls aglow with the nebula's spectral light. Around them, human dreadnoughts and peacekeeper cruisers formed two vast circles, razor-edged halos poised to strike. On the bridge of the intrepid Dawn, Admiral Celine Peregrine stood silent at the viewport. Behind her, officers awaited her command with bated breath. Beside her, Captain Eshan Talis monitored the wavering power signatures of human and council shields. "Admiral," Talis murmured, "we're 15 seconds from weapons hot. We hold at your word." Peregrine's reflection shimmered against the viewport. Memories of every world laid to waste flickered through her mind. Scaros Falls burning, fields, Cascade Station's shattered domes, families torn from their homes. She drew a slow breath and keyed her comm. "This is Admiral Peregrine. All vessels, stand down weapons systems. Do not fire unless provoked." A tense silence. Then, on hundreds of channels, the hum of power grids winding down. The dreadnought's turrets retracted, the cruiser's plasma lances dimmed, and the nebula's glow reflected off stilling hulls. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Eternalis, Grand Archivist Vashorn regarded the silent armada of humanity with luminous eyes. High Counselor Orion stood at his side, rigid in his drilliniform armor. "Impressive restraint," Orion admitted, his voice echoing across the comlink. "Few have shown such control after suffering such losses." Peregrine's silhouette stared back. "Mercy is never weakness. We chose vengeance and found only ruin." At those words, the two flagship captains authorized a secure hololink. The vast expanse between them shimmered away, and Peregrine and Orion stood face to face in the Cat's Eye's emerald haze. "Your terms, Orion," Peregrine said softly. "What does the Council demand?" Orion folded his arms, his mottled hide pulsing with conflicted emotion. "Withdrawal of all human fleets from Council space, disarmament of our captured gates, a joint commission to assess reparations and negotiate new accords." Peregrine nodded. "And in return?" Orion's voice softened. "Recognition of human sovereignty, amnesty for all who fought under your command, and a place at the council table with full voting rights." Silence stretched between them. two leaders balancing vengeance and peace on a knife's edge. Finally, Peregrine extended her hand. Agreed. Orion clasped it with surprising warmth, then let this ceasefire endure beyond the fires of war. Behind Peregrine, hollow projections bloomed across the intrepid Dawn's deck, relaying the agreement to every ship. Across the nebula, weapons bays clanged shut, jamming arrays powered down. On both sides, crews released held breaths, relief washing over tired faces. In the days that followed, human engineers and council architects worked side by side to demilitarize the Cat's Eye Nexus, transforming a frontier battleground into a neutral ground for diplomacy. On the shattered decks of the Aeternalis, Draelin diplomats planted a sapling grown from Terran seeds, symbol of new life sprouting from the ruins of war. Ambassador Lyra Sato arrived aboard the summit platform, flanked by Eridanian envoys and Lycian scholars. Admiral Peregrine and High Counselor Oriand took their seats at the circular peace table, its surface inscribed with the Treaty of 10,000 Suns, and now destined for revision. Vashorn raised a crystalline gavel. Let this be the moment we remember, not for the weapons silenced, but for the voices heard. May our future stand upon understanding, not fear. As the delegates began their deliberations, far below, the swirling gases of the nebula, small human and council survey ships drifted over distant worlds, assessing the scars of conflict, delivering aid, rebuilding habitats. On the final day of the summit, Peregrine and Oriand jointly announced the reforged Accord of Cat's Eye, mutual non-aggression clause, ensuring no act of war without prior council approval, joint reconstruction trust, pooling resources to restore ravaged worlds. Cultural exchange program, granting every species seat in each other's academies and archives. When the ink dried, the two leaders stepped onto the summit balcony. Before them stretched the endless fields of emerald and violet nebula, a tapestry of possibility. Orion turned to Peregrine. Will humanity keep its word? Peregrine's gaze traveled across the nebula's heart. We will, for the sake of every life we nearly lost. They clasped forearms in the ancient gesture of alliance. Below, the sapling's leaves unfurled, catching the nebula's light, a living testament that even at the brink of oblivion, hope could take root. And so, frozen in that fragile moment between past enmity and future promise, the galaxy dared to believe that vengeance need not define its rulers, and peace, once chosen, could endure across the stars.